begins, sizing up Murphy, drives, floats, hangs, and scores on the turnaround. J-Dub way behind the three-point line and hits way behind the three-point line. Got blocked, what a rejection by Holmgren. Standing tall like a wall.
This is Dart. You're listening to the Uncontested.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Uncontested postgame show, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm your host on this Wednesday evening, JD Silva, joined by a couple of fellas. The first one's Jacob Niffin.
What's up?
Second one's Taylor Peterson.
Battling a cold, so if I sound ridiculous, I apologize, but I usually sound ridiculous on this podcast, so nothing new.
No. Glad you're feeling somewhat better.
Yeah,
Somewhat
yeah.
better.
You know who's not feeling better?
Jacob about Usman Jane.
The Thunder lost this basketball game.
Yeah, we're talking about some basketball tonight, folks. Before we dig into that game against the Houston Rockets in the preseason, I want to remind you to subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating if you have not done so already. 5 stars. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, etc.
But you can't give us money on YouTube anymore because we're in jail.
We're in jail, but we'll be out of jail at some point. Hoping we get pardoned by the new administration in November.
Maybe Joe will pardon us before he leaves office.
It's doubtful. We're going to get into this game. Thunder lost. Doesn't really matter. It's preseason. There's a lot to talk about. Jacob and I were at the game. Have some observations. Can't wait. Jacob, do you have something you would like to say?
Yo, Dre, I got something to say. I'm not going to say that. Some exciting news. Some very, very exciting news, actually. We have a new sponsor for the 2024-25 Thunder season. Excited to finally announce it. Prairie, Artisan Ales, is joining up with the Uncontested podcast this year to bring you some awesome content. We're going to have some Prairie special segments every week on the show. We are going to be doing some Prairie giveaways, some gift cards, so you can go get some merch and some beer at the tap room here in Oklahoma City. We're also working on getting some e-gift cards, so if you are out of the OKC metro area, you could still order some stuff from their website. And the thing I'm most excited for, the first uncontested watch party of the season. We are ready to announce that will be coming up in just a mere 2.5 weeks, gentlemen. The game is Saturday, October 26th. It is an away game, second game of the season against the Chicago Bulls. So mark your calendars. Saturday, October 26th, 7 p.m. We will be hanging out at Prairie Artisan Ales, where you can come watch the game. You can get some delicious beers. And we have, I want to make sure I get this right. We have Texas Ross barbecue truck, which will be there that night as well. So not only can you come get some delicious Prairie beers, but you can get some barbecue as well. Make it a Saturday night. Come hang out, get some dinner, watch the game, get some beers. And Texas Ross barbecue emailed me today to tell me what they would have on the menu for game.
It is insane.
Listen to this. Prime brisket pastrami, handmade sausage, brisket mac and cheese, Jamaican jerk chicken, and this one is insane. Sweet tea brined, smoked chicken wings, tossed in hot sauce. They'll also have chopped brisket elote, loaded brisket mac and cheese bowl. It's going to be insane.
I'm really hungry now.
It's going to be insane.
I cannot wait for those wings.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
Here's the thing. Cash and card both work. So you can just show up with your credit card. You can bring cash, whatever. even though Prairie is a tap room, you can bring folks under 21. So if you want to bring your kid out, bring your kid out. There's only 2 rules. They can't drink, and you got to take them home at the end of the night. That's it. We're going to have some
Seems fair
giveaways. We're going to have a hell of a time Saturday, October 26th at Prairie Artisan Nails. Cannot wait. Super excited to have Prairie on board this season. We've been big fans for forever. And to get them to team up with us is just like Justin is absolutely over the moon about it. Another guy who's pretty excited about it, Nick Crane, been hammering the buzzer beater Prairie beer. Nick, how is it?
It's the best tasting beer. I'm not just saying this either. Like, it is the best tasting beer I've ever had in my entire life. Like, it tastes like Gatorade. Like, it's enjoyable.
I can confirm that he said this before the deal was signed. Nick's a fan. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, it's so good.
That's bad news for Jacob, but known Gatorade lover.
maybe the Prairie sponsorship is what pushes me over the edge, boys. I'll try beer.
Yes.
Now we're talking.
And you can buy it not in Oklahoma. Like, I don't live in Oklahoma, and I still have the accessibility to actually like 6 or 7 different brews by Prairie. So solid.
It must be nice, Nick. I cannot find it anywhere, but I will find it now that we have this sponsorship deal. Help me.
Chad is unhinged tonight already. We love
Yes.
that. So some really, I know I'm kind of going on, but like we are ecstatic about the Prairie partnership. So you can be on the lookout for Prairie themed segments on the Sunday show and on the post game shows. We're going to get some fan interaction with those. And through that fan interaction, we'll be giving away some Prairie gift cards. You can use for merch. You can use for beer. You can use to go hang out in the tap room and have a drink. You can go before a Thunder game, get a beer on your way to the game after work, whatever. So we are super excited. We may even have the one and only Nick Crane in attendance for the watch party. Nick is going to slam some of those sweet tea wings. It is going to be... I can't wait for the watch party. The watch party is going to be insane. The matchup with Josh Giddey. We're going to watch Caruso put Josh Giddey in jail. We're going to eat on some barbecue. We're going to drink some Prairie beers, and we're going to have a fun time. So again, mark your calendars. Saturday, October 26th.
Be fun. Taylor might break the record for most beers drinking.
At an uncontested watch party.
We'll see about
We'll
that.
challenge Nick.
Oh.
We'll see about that. We will have to podcast afterwards probably, so we'll have to limit it in some way. Or not. I don't know.
Full on just wasted pod. I
Might just start playing pickleball afterwards. There's a
Hey,
court
yeah,
next
that's
door.
right.
Prairie does have a pickleball court, guys. So if you're into pickleball, you should go play pickleball at Prairie. The court is awesome.
I'm
You
telling
do
you.
an uncontested pickleball tournament.
Ooh.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Now we're talking.
A lot of fun stuff cooking up, no pun intended, with Prairie. Really, really excited. Most exciting thing was how this all came together so organically. Just some of us hanging out at Prairie because we loved it this summer, and sure enough, they're fans of the podcast, and here we are. So it's all because of your guys' listener support.
Two cool groups doing cool shit that wanted to do cool shit together.
And when you go, or when you buy, or do any of the above, tweet us. We want to know what flavors you like, and is flavor even the right way to describe a beer? If there's a brew you like, let us know.
Prairie also does New Beer Friday.
Ooh,
Yes.
Every Friday they have a new beer.
that's
So
sick.
we will be sampling some of those beers on the show. Lots of cool stuff. Coming up. So we're super excited about that. If you're in OKC, go drink Prairie beers.
And come
Go
to the
hang
watch
out.
party on October 26th.
Watch party's gonna be dope. Justin's gonna be there. We may get Nick there. Taylor might already be drunk.
Not true. I'm battling a cold.
Smoot is bullying me in the chat. All right, let's talk some
We're having
basketball.
a good time. Let's talk some basketball. Thunder played a game tonight, preseason. Played against our beloved Houston Rockets that we all loved dearly. Lost 113 to 122 after this game went into overtime. Love
Dumb.
overtime, except for when it's in the preseason. But here we are. Final score, like I said at the beginning of the show, doesn't really matter. It's not indicative of the larger result. I think there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about from this game. Jacob and I were there. Taylor and Nick, you guys watched. Where do you want to start? I mean, when Jacob and I were walking back to our cars after, we were like, 3 big takeaways. Jacob, you just want to revisit that?
You want me to tell you guys my 3 takeaways, then we can branch off of there?
Let's hear them.
Takeaway 1. I think the first half was primarily what the rotation will look like, and it's really damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Takeaway 2. I think AJ Mitchell's just got it, dude. Takeaway 3. The Rockets stink.
I don't think they stink. I think that they will be a 500 plus or minus a couple wins, which is not like horrible.
Here's my thing about the Rockets. Is there a team that is a better example of the antithesis of the Thunder than the Houston Rockets?
Athleticism.
It's a style of play.
Yeah.
Silva said it to me tonight. Houston, all they have is hoopers. The Thunder have basketball players. And the Thunder have hoopers that have become basketball players. The Rockets, it's like, how much can the one guy cook and then pass to the next guy to cook? It reminds me of early Thunder basketball, like Russ KD Harden, but like 70% of the talent.
It reminds me. I'd be careful with my words here.
Uh-oh.
It's a younger, more fun version of what the Clippers are going to put on the floor this year, where they're going to rely on a guy or two to do a lot of the scoring. They've got a few like interesting athletic defenders. They'll be good enough they can beat any given team on any given night, but they'll still end up, again, I think 500, give or take a few games.
It feels like they're a team that, like, if Jalen Green gets hot, they'll be good.
Yeah.
But they just want a guy to cook. It's like there's not. It feels like 5 individuals versus a collective team offensively.
I think that'll change with time. Like, I think the Reed pick,
It could.
the Amen Thompson pick.
The Reed and Amen, I agree with you. But then you look at guys like Cam Whitmore and Jalen Green, and to an extent, oh my gosh, why am I going blank? Jabari Smith Jr. are dudes that just like are ball stopper, want to cook, want to dribble the ball 15 times. I'm not a fan of the style of basketball.
I think Jabari's not in that same category, but I think Jalen and Cam, I agree with. And I think they can be really impactful players, but they're going to have to be put in the right role. And the Rockets don't have other guys to step up to allow them to be in that role yet. Like if you fast forward 3 years and Jalen Green's your 6th man and his job is to cook off the bench versus being like a number 1 scorer, that's really damn appealing. But if he wants a max contract, there's too many what ifs in the next couple of years. Same with Cam. Like, Cam would be an awesome 6th, 7th, 8th man, but I think the expectation from Rockets fans and others around the league is that he's more than that, which we'll see. I mean, it's early.
Usual.
It's early.
Hey, Rockets fans are already telling me that everything's going to be fine when Van Vliet plays. Missing piece.
It will look better, but like let's not forget Van Vliet played last year and they're still 20th in offensive rating. Like,
I could
now
see the vision.
Reed Shepard and JD and I mentioned this. Small dude.
yes,
But
Small
he
dude.
is
He surprised me
He
at
is
Summer
good.
League.
He can hoop. He can play.
some of their best shots of the night came because the ball was in Reed's hands and he was involved in the action. Like the vision of the Rockets being a successful team is there. It's just kind of buried behind the previous draft classes where they may have swung and missed, or they've swung and hit on a play style that doesn't blend with the best talent they have now. Like if you put Şengün, Reed Shepherd, Amin Thompson, Tari Eason, and whoever else, Jabari even. That's a really good lineup, especially in 2-3 years. Like, that's awesome. But the problem is, like Nick said, Jalen Green's going to sit there and cook. King Whitmore's going to sit there and cook. Dylan Brooks. Oh, my God, Dylan Brooks. It's just too much.
Is he your favorite player, JD?
Dylan Brooks?
Yes.
No. And the Rockets, I love basketball so much. Obviously, hey, I'm on a basketball podcast. But the Rockets are like, make it not enjoyable to me to watch. It just stinks. And maybe
All right.
We're 16 minutes in now.
Let's talk about the Thunder.
Let's talk the Thunder basketball.
Which of my other 2 points do you guys want to talk about?
We could just go backwards. Talk about AJ. Your second point.
AJ looks awesome.
AJ and the J stands for juice.
Thing that stands out to me is he's just another one of those players who, obviously, he's a little older in terms of NBA draft, but comes in just confident, able to read the floor at a high level, was creating for teammates. His ability to get to the rim is incredibly impressive. His jumpers improved year over year and looks even better this year than his junior season at Santa Barbara. I'm really, really impressed from AJ and just the tenacity, is that the word I want to use, that he brings on both ends of the floor. Like,
he's got some dog,
mucking up some of the passing lanes, getting in there. He's not like an elite on-ball defender necessarily, but he understands the game at a high level, which is obviously a theme with Thunder players, and just it stands out early, especially when he's in lineups with some of the starters or in lineups with the OKC Blue. It pops for sure.
He loves to get downhill. He makes the right play. I pointed out to JD, you know what impressed me the most tonight? From AJ specifically, 2 plays, both in the third quarter. I believe both in the third, maybe one in the third, one in the fourth. There was a play where he got switched, and I mean, he got low and was about to do a WWE move on Jacques Landale, boxing him out, pushing him out of the way to get a rebound, which was awesome. The other one was there was a Thunder foul on the defensive end, and AJ starts barking at everybody to get in a huddle so he can tell them stuff. That's the new guy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the other guys on the court, like Ousmane Dieng, are just kind of hanging out. And that's a guy that's been in the system for 3 years. The leadership, the competitiveness, the tenacity, the basketball IQ, the connectiveness, the toughness of AJ really pops for me.
My only worry with him, and it's his second preseason game ever, so this will change. Today, the lefty unorthodox finishes work, where he's driving right. Naturally, it'd be
inside. Yeah,
it'd be like a Dylan Jones had a couple of kind of sweeping layups over a bigger defender as he drives from the left wing to the right side of the rim, whereas AJ kind of rises up and dumps over with his left. That works today because he's not on the scouting report, and I'm not concerned long term because he will adjust to this, but so will other teams. A lot of the stuff that he does will have to change. He's a little left hand dominant, a little too often for me.
Good news. He'll be on page 30 of the scouting report.
That's what I'm saying. Right now, it doesn't matter.
Ain't nobody reading that.
If he's ever going to, I don't think the expectation is he's ever a starting caliber player or, frankly, a top 7-8 rotation player. If Oklahoma City's the contender we think they're going to be for the next 5 to 10 years. But if that is on the roadmap for him and he does surprise us, that's the thing that I think sticks out. If we're going to hype these guys up in preseason, we got to be a little bit constructive as well.
If that's the issue, it's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, a Mavs account that followed me and I followed back during the playoff series when we were going back and forth.
Follow back.
Something out about this. And he actually deleted it very quickly before I could even quote tweet or reply. But just mentioned the Thunder are gonna have to get rid of some of these guys. They should have done it already because they're so deep, blah, 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 blah. And it's just how do you not understand? What a great problem this is to have. Mavs fans will be dying to have this opportunity. So I think you're on something, Nick. But maybe that transitioned us to a bigger point. I'm kind of curious, or a bigger overall point, not a specific player, that I was curious your guys' thoughts on. I think it was earlier today or late yesterday at practice that Dagnall mentioned everybody's available, and we're going to have this starting five with Caruso, and he expected these guys to get more of a heavy workload. So we saw the starters with Caruso, not iHeart. iHeart was the first sub. Then the next subs, we had Isaiah Joe, Wiggins, and Cason Wallace. But the next player to break that rotation was AJ Mitchell. Are we reading anything into that, given it's preseason? Should we read anything into the rotations in general with everybody being healthy and available?
I don't think
Overall
like
thoughts.
the order necessarily, but I think you saw what the rotation, like who's in the rotation. I think you saw that in the first half, with the exception of AJ.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is no, we should not read too much into it. I think what we can read is that he's already impressed the coaching staff enough to be in that position. Like, you don't see Alex Dukas playing
The Dukester.
early in the game like he is. So I don't think it's indicative of like he's impressed so much that that's going to be where he's going to be playing in the regular season. But they like him, and that's
Right.
a positive sign.
Does Alex Dukas have a thick backside? So we can. I want to call him Dump Truck.
That's a
Dukas.
sounder.
I want to call him Dump Truck Dukas.
Well, you can. The good news is you can. There's
Okay,
nothing
thank you.
stopping you.
Dump Truck Dukas is a little nice. I kind of have enjoyed.
What's
enjoyed
his
watching
dump
him.
truck is nice, or he's a nice player, or he's a nice person?
That's what I was gonna say. You didn't clarify.
All of the above.
Oh my! If you played him 1-on-1, what's the final score?
Oh, he's
11?
How tall is he?
He's a big dude. Probably
I know.
6'7", 6'6".
6'7".
Yeah, he's gonna whoop my ass. He's
Oh,
gonna
God.
he's gonna back me down into the paint with that dump truck.
If you were
Don't get too excited there, Jacob.
if there was $1 million prize money on the line, and it was like you have to play a single Thunder player 1-on-1. If you beat them, you get the $1 million. If you lose, nothing happens. You go on with your day. Who are you picking to play against?
If I
Oos.
beat them,
Yes,
I'm not beating any of them.
but what's your best?
But if I had to,
obviously,
pick,
Jacob. Obviously, you're not beating an NBA player. one-on-one.
hey, why don't you pump the brakes a little? You're not beating them either, buddy.
I agree. My question is not who could you beat. It was like who would you pick if you had the option where you're like, maybe somehow, some way I score a couple baskets and this thing gets interesting.
I'd probably go for the guy named Cormac.
Cormac Ryan.
Cormac Ryan. That's
I
a good
agree.
one.
I agree. I'll go with Cormac Ryan as well.
Okay.
Guy
Love
should be an author.
it. Seriously, maybe he will be.
It's a
like
great
poet.
author name.
It's a poet name for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. I think this is a good time to lead into Jacob's first point and a general discussion about what I was feeling the entire time I was at this game watching. This is a very deep roster, which is obvious. But there were just so many times throughout the game where a sub would happen, and I'd be like, oh, hell yeah. I'm excited to see this lineup. Like, that just kept happening every time. It was Hartenstein coming in. It was, I think the first sub was Jada about Hartenstein in. I'm like, great. Let's see what that is. And last season, there were lineups that I hated. That I just did not want it. They were gross. Like, specifically when lineups without Chet, J-Dub, or Shea were pretty tough. But now it's like, okay, Kaysen's a year older. Kaysen looks confident out there. He does look bigger in person. He was doing more on-ball stuff, getting to the rim whenever he wanted to. It's awesome. Like there are very few lineups that I can think of that I will not be excited to watch unless Ousmane Dieng is in it. Otherwise, like, what a deep team. Are there like 11 good players on this team?
At least. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's probably 12 guys when fully healthy that when they're on the floor, you don't get like that cringe where it's like, God, this guy better not screw up. Like, there's 12 guys that you trust, I believe.
That's the feeling I was waiting for, where it's like, oh, I wish there was someone else out there. I really never felt that until, near the end of the game where there was just subbing guys out playing like the blue guys.
We saw guys like Aaron Wiggins pop, especially there in the second half when the
He's really
starters
good.
weren't playing. I mean, that self-creation he had there to start the third quarter where he drove into the lane, had a little hesitation move, had a little step back, drilled the mid-range shot. I mean, these are things. This is a confident Aaron Wiggins. He's making things still happen on the defensive end of the floor. There's just like so much talent. It's almost like the biggest problem is how do you play all these guys together? And that's a great problem to have for Mark Daigneault. So Wiggins is somebody who immediately came to my mind when you mentioned that, Silva. I also thought about the lineups without Chet, Shea, Dub. They're in the first half. And like you said, when you have like a Casey Wallace or Wiggins, or maybe it's Caruso coming in, there's just so many options. And that's really promising. And I'm curious to see how much of that, like, for example, Dub was subbed out. And I immediately thought that Dub would be who would come back in for Shea. And I think in the regular season, come second quarter, beginning of the second quarter, into the first, that's probably the move that's made. But it was AJ Mitchell tonight, right? And so it just, I think, goes to what you were talking about with the Thunder's depth. So many options.
Now, go ahead, Nick.
I have two more points to talk about. So maybe if you have a thought on this one, go ahead, and then I'll pivot.
Okay. I was going to kind of transition to lineups a little bit more. So if you want to go ahead, you go ahead.
One of mine is lineup adjacent. So maybe we'll start there. 1 point, we'll come back to this one, is shooting mechanics. I think most notably SGA and Chet have different shooting mechanics. I think it's worth discussing briefly. The second was Alex Caruso. Not a lineup thought, but something that could have impact lineups now we're in the playoffs. I am not a preseason overreactor at all, but I have seen enough that Alex Caruso is better than Lou Dort in this system, and it's not close.
That's all it took?
It's not close. Like
You can't dribble within 5 feet of the dude.
Well, defense aside, it's not the defense. They're both going to be incredible on defense. It's the offense where it's like the 40% shooting, which hasn't been great at all points of the preseason, but it's like the smart cuts, like when Isaiah Hartenstein found him on that it's
so
like
nice.
The things he does on offense, like his IQ,
The fluidity.
when he's not scoring, like the movement, the off-ball screen, it's a whole different world. And I think Lou will get there one day.
Can I mention something on that play you just said?
Yeah.
So Hartenstein has it kind of at the elbow extended, like free throw extended, and then hits the really nice pass to the cutting Caruso. Do you know what Caruso was doing in that play before he cut?
Ghost screen?
Have you watched the play? Yeah, he goes.
I've watched it, but it's been 2 hours.
Yeah, he goes up and like sets like a back screen, and then like he's setting the screen for the guy curling around to come like get a dribble handoff from Isaiah Hartenstein. And as soon as that screen makes contact, it's almost like a screen and roll, but the ball's not involved. And he comes off that screen and immediately cuts down the lane as the defenders are trying to switch. So he's got the defender on his outside hip, which allows it. I mean, to process and go through that stuff.
It's not Lou Dort's not there yet, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Lou Dort's a young player. Lou Dort is still improving. Lou Dort's come a long way offensively. Lou Dort goes through some heaters from three and has been good offensively, but I think
Thought he had some really good possessions in that first quarter too.
Totally. But on a night-to-night basis, they're not close offensively.
So are you lobbying Caruso over Dort?
Well, that's the lineup part of this conversation. I think they will both start, but I think if you get to a point in the playoffs or like they try things early in the season, like the official starting lineup in game 30, I think if it comes down to Lou and Alex, it is Alex without question.
Well, and I think that leads to the bigger question too. I think both of these things are connected. Everybody wants to talk about Caruso and Dort. They want to talk about the double big lineup. Who starts? Who closes? To your point, Nick, what we've seen, especially with iHeart and the way they've used him as a playmaking hub. We talked a lot about this after the first preseason.
He loves the
game
DHO.
Oh my gosh.
He loves the DHO.
It is pretty too. And he can create the separation. He gets on screens, all the things we have been talking about. If those lineups with him and Chet are as impressive as they've seemed early on, which is an incredibly small sample size, then I think you're onto something. Like that's probably the lineups you should be closing with. But just another, even with Lou, like on the floor, I love that they have both
They
Lou
can coexist.
Caruso, and in those dunker spots, right, where they're doing the backdoor cuts and just creating so much for some of these players like Shea and Dub. It just opens the floor up so much more than just having 3-point shooters to space the floor. You have these guys moving off ball, and that just
how many times, Taylor, tonight did you see an offensive possession that first half where the ball starts on one side of the floor, gets in the paint, goes to the corner, makes it to the other side of the floor? Like you just when you make the defense move and you make them guard multiple actions, your percentage chance of making that defense break down and make a mistake goes up. And they did that so well tonight. I want to go back. I want to go back to the lineup thing. And I don't think Taylor and Nick were on the pod. I think it was a JD and I pod. I think the starting lineup is going to be what we saw tonight. And I think barring injury, that's the starting lineup for the season. They don't typically play with the starting lineup. Sometimes they'll change it after half. And the closing lineup will be different. I think the starting lineup will be in place. One thing that I noticed with that lineup tonight, it's a little short. When you swap out, how tall is Caruso? 6'4", 6'5", for the 6'9" Josh Giddey. Like the size difference shows. And they started Shea on Jabari Smith Jr. I think it says a lot that the 6'6" Shea blocked the 6'10" Jabari Smith Jr.
Correct.
on a
That was
turnaround
awesome.
jumper. But Shea is the second tallest guy in that lineup.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild. But then when they sub, JD mentioned it tonight, it was take J-Dub off, put Hartenstein on. But if they were to take Dort off, put Hartenstein on, like the balance of the lineup flips so dramatically. You know what I'm saying? Like you're going from like 4 guys who are 6'6" or shorter and your 7-footer to now double 7-footers and then 3 6'6" guys. Like
It just changes the roles of the pieces that are not the double bigs.
yeah, and the balancing act on this scale goes from leaning one way, kind of super small ball, to swinging all the way the other way. Pretty quickly with like one sub. And I found that really fascinating.
And yet they're still able to maintain their identity of play on both ends of the basketball court.
Yeah.
Which is
Now-
Presti ball to a T.
Yeah. Now
Everybody's
they,
wondering, they're like, what do we call this style of play? I think we had that question Sunday when I wasn't able to join. I can't remember. It's Presti ball.
And we're getting closer and closer to his vision of that. Like when Nick was describing Caruso's role in the offense and his ability to process quickly, but in a way that's better than what Lou Dort can at this point in time. That is like so much closer to Presti's vision.
Yeah.
As far as what we're looking for, and it's like a very, very difficult to scheme against, I would imagine. Anything can change. The lineups are versatile. Everyone could do 6-7 different things on the court at once. It's a special roster.
To be like, to circle back to the Lou versus Alex, Lou is a good offensive player. Like he's a guy that you can trust on offense and has won games with his offensive. Like he's won many games with the defense. He's also won games with his offense. So it's like a relativity thing. It's not bashing on Lou's ability to be a good offensive player. He's a good offensive. This team is just so deep that there's others that are better. Jacob, you mentioned the kind of ball movement and the ability for guys to keep swinging inside out kind of play. I think the Thunder's been good at that the past year or two. I think the wrinkle that Hartenstein provides is he's a guy that can catch and he can let things happen around him. And there's bad ball stoppers and there's good ball stoppers. He's a guy that can catch the ball, elbow, high post, mid post even, and just let actions run around him. That's an element of the game we haven't really seen from the Thunder in a huge, like there's been times where like Shea will catch and then things will happen and then they'll run a play. There's never been in this era of Thunder basketball. Chet's never been this guy. Chet's always been a catch and I'm either going to like pass or I'm going to shoot or I'm going to drive. Hartenstein can like catch. Mark can get super creative and like let's run some kind of action to get this guy open, or some kind of action to get like an off-ball switch. There's so many things that he is going to unlock on offense, especially in the playoffs. If Derek Jones Jr. or Herb Jones or whoever's a guy you don't want on Shea, Hartenstein's a guy that can stick with the ball. You can run a hell of a lot of action off ball. It doesn't have to be a pick and roll to get a switch that you like. It can be him catching, having off ball action. Shea comes up, gets it, has a better matchup, and then you run. It's a different level of thing you can do with Hartenstein.
My
the offensive hub.
My concern with the double big thing was that it would remove space that SGA had to drive and some of that freedom that he had. But Hartenstein is so active all the time that I don't know if it will be an issue.
And you know what I've noticed in these first two games? I've seen more lobs thrown in these first two preseason games than I saw
bad
in
ones
3 months.
mostly.
They're trying to kill Chet.
Yeah.
Gonna kill him.
JD mentioned tonight also that by inserting Hartenstein with Chet, just the backside rim protection is just insane. And they clean the glass very efficiently with those two. And Chet's ability to guard on the perimeter, I also think it's a really interesting dynamic defensively with those two, because you can really play switch defense with Chet on the perimeter.
He guarded Jalen Green.
That's what I was going to mention, that possession.
Hartenstein, though, is almost like an exclusively drop big, but he's a really good drop big in the sense that where he drops in his depth, he's able to kind of like play two at once and play that cat and mouse game. And I think Chet's really good at that too. But when you have both those guys out there, I mean, there was I forget, it was in the first quarter, I think. But there was
this
a
is the
possession
play I'm thinking of
where Jalen Green like calls up a Şengün screen to try to like cook off of a screen. And it's like, Hartenstein, you're in a pick and roll, and you would think a Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün, the two offensive guys in a pick and roll, that's like good offense, right? You got two good players. The flip side is you're going against Caruso and Hartenstein. Like, that play's dead from the beginning. You need to swing it to the other side and get a pick and roll on the other side going with somebody else who was Lou Dort and Chet Holmgren. So what the hell are you going to do there? It's just like the versatility defensively is freaking insane, dude.
Well, and there's a possession where you had Caruso in that lineup as well, to Nick's point, defensively. And I believe Hartenstein was up there guarding the high post. Chet was roaming, which is something I talked about, having those two bigs playing together defensively. That allows Chet to kind of be that free safety kind of defender, which is really exciting. But there was some off-ball movement that happened, and you just saw Caruso direct Chet to drop back down into the high post, into the to be a rim protector, where Caruso goes and picks up the perimeter defender, and just the communication already on defense and the synergy they already have. That's something that stood out to me.
Dude, they're going to average like 20 steals a game.
That
just
synergy
natural.
Doesn't exist though, and the ability to already be at that point where they can communicate only happens if you have smart players in the roster.
Yep.
Like that's
and the right system in place.
Imagine
Definitely.
what that looks like in January.
Yeah, it's going to be.
Imagine what it looks like come playoff time.
Yeah.
They're going to be suffocating. Like
we've already seen some of that though. Like Şengün in the second half, when the Thunder stopped playing starters, time and time again, he'd catch like deep dunker spot, and it would be Cason Wallace that was defending him with like help from the wing defender closest. Like that's the kind of stuff that we watch the game and you kind of forget about that. That's Mark scheming. That's like these little things in the preseason where like at some point in the playoffs, there will be a time where there's a big that they know cannot shoot, and they trust a smaller guy to hold his own with some help. Like that's schematics that will come back, and we're gonna be like, oh my god, that's why Mark did that in the preseason, to give Cason that experience to do this now. Like it's the little things.
Yep. There's a lot of little interesting defensive wrinkles that are super minute and like in the weeds, and I'm sure people don't care about, but like the fourth quarter, there's an isolation play on the left side of the floor. AJ Mitchell's guarding the guy in the opposite corner and comes all the way over to the opposite block to like take away the drive That way the pass to his man is like a skip pass across the court, so they can rotate down, and AJ can take the next closest defender. There's just like these little things that are just, the communication's got to be on point. Everyone's got to be on a string. I don't know. We've kind of hinted at this a few times tonight, but I think offensively and defensively, they are getting to this idolized style of play that Presti and Mark want them to be at. And it's because they have the right guys as far as their on-court ability and like the brain and the willingness to like sacrifice for the team.
I think of the 2014 Spurs that went.
All right, so why don't you pump the brakes there, buddy?
Well, look, this from a style of play standpoint. Not that they have. Yeah, and
Chet Holmgren's Tim Duncan. You heard it here first, folks.
I mean,
yeah. But I will say, and we're probably going to have new fans joining, listening to us, keeping up with the team more than they did before. If you ever wanted to like learn basketball and pay close attention to basketball and watch it in a different way, this is the funnest team you could possibly watch.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a common team. You will see something every play that's funky or fun, a little odd. You'll see players where you think in their position they should not be doing this thing, but they are, and it works all the time. There's just going to be something, and you'll hear. I mean, you guys can see the excitement from us already in the second preseason game. I mean, the season hasn't even started yet, and we're already foaming at the mouth to analyze this team. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
You know what we haven't even mentioned yet?
The big three. That's what I was going to mention.
Didn't even talk about it.
J-Dub and Shea combined for 30 points on 11 of 18 shooting, 5 of 8 from 3.
Yes.
And
So
Shea's 2 threes were off the dribble pull-ups.
Mechanics. Let's go. Let's finish off my second point there. What are you seeing in Shea's shot?
Fast.
quicker release, fluidity. Word of the day.
Quicker. It's way quicker.
And same for Dub. No hesitation. I mean, a lot of those were off the dribble when he's being defended.
I don't know the speed of the shot on Dub, but just as far as like dribble to ball out of the hand, but speed as far as this thing's going up.
Correct.
That speed I love from Dub.
And it's still going on in at a high clip.
Brother took 6 in 16 minutes. Like that's exactly what you want to see.
And 10 in 2 preseason games. That's awesome.
Nick, I think you want to talk about Chet's shooting form as well. So go off.
I'm not going to go. I don't think it's reason for concern, but I think it's clear that he's still in the transitional phase of what he's worked on. Like he's worked on it all summer. We've gotten like glimpses behind the scenes. Like the NBA official account tweeted out a video of him doing like the behind the backboard shots for his arc. And, he spent time with Chip and he's mentioned the flat shot. Like he's been very open. Like he wants to improve his 3-point shot and his legs and all that kind of stuff. There was the concern on twitter.com of his pregame in San Antonio where it was an exaggerated one-handed shot, which is part of adjusting your shot. Is you're not always shooting with your shooting form. You're doing things to overcorrect a bit to make it feel more natural when you are in game shooting. So if you saw the corner 3 in San Antonio that went viral, that's not his jumper. That's a pregame thing. But I think where it shined most tonight was at the free throw line. That's where you can see a change in mechanics a bit easier because it's a slower motion and it's like isolated on that one player and it's consistent because there's no one defending you. You're not having to like elevate the shot or speed it up. He looked a little uncomfortable from the free throw line early on. His 3-point shot in general has looked a little uncomfortable. So my only point there was I don't think it's reason for concern. Like it's going to come around. But I wouldn't be shocked if like the first 15, 20 games of the season, his shooting splits from the free throw line and then even like mid-range 3 were not where you'd like him to be. But I think I'm pretty confident by All-Star break, he's very, very good.
think that's an incredibly fair point, but I just want to add on to that I'm not even concerned one bit about the shooting because the aggressiveness we've seen from Chet the past 2 games. So my app's telling me 8 free throw attempts in the and again, he only played the first half. I saw 10. Him getting to the rim like he did, and look, it's preseason. I think there's a couple of plays he probably would have liked to have back. Like, for example, he had Dub wide open in the corner on one of those drives. Said he drives into 3 defenders and he draws the foul. But the aggressiveness from Chet and them feeding him the ball like they have these first 2 preseason games, I think is an omen of things to come. And if we're getting that sort of aggressive Chet, and you have all these other players we've talked so much about tonight, the 3-point shot will come along, is my point. It's the aggressiveness, his ability to get to the line so far. That's really has me excited.
I feel like we could talk for another hour about this one preseason game. We should probably wind down. Is there anything
They do have another
else?
one tomorrow.
They do have another one tomorrow against the New Zealand Breakers.
I'd
everybody.
expect that one to be a little more into the bench heavy.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Hey, give me all the AJ minutes they can give me.
Will
You'll
we
get a
see
lot of-
Usman Jang run at full speed at any point?
I mean, this is his old team.
That's right.
Oh boy.
Usman
game.
revenge game.
His old team.
I seriously had a thought watching Usman in the beginning of the 4th quarter. I was like, I've seen his box score when he plays for the G League. I'm going to go watch one of those games and see what the hell is going on. Because there's no way that's the same guy.
I thought there was the door was cracked with the Kenrich and the J. Will camp injuries. That there was a place with a guy that size to kind of force his way into the conversation.
He slammed that shit shut. He said, no, thank you.
He you know those cartoons where like they slam the door and there's like the 50 locks and then close the blinds. Like I'm a little concerned.
But he's still young enough you can put him in a package and that package actually is sweeter. There's no question. At his age, some team will value some rebuild. The Nets, the
Hornets.
Wizards, so the Hornets, they got Salon now, so it's like, why do you need Us?
True.
There will be a team. He's not going to be a needle mover, but there will. If he's in a trade package at the deadline, the team that traded for him will actually have value in him, and he was part of the reason that he wasn't just like a salary throw in. I guarantee you.
I just always think of whenever we talk about this previous draft, JD calling him the T. John Saloon. Like he's like a old, like it's a drinking establishment
with
in
the
an old
doors
Western
that
movie.
you walk in and they wobble
The
back
T.
and forth.
John Saloon.
I said, get me a sarsaparilla at the T. John Saloon.
With your bucket cowboy hat on.
Yes.
Hey, if you
Some
don't follow
Spurs.
the Uncontested on Twitter, I suggest you do so because sometimes we give JD the password and we just let him shitpost. And he had one tonight of some dude juggling and eating apples, and I was just like, "What is your algorithm, man?"
Don't know how his brain works, but I
I
love
got
it.
it bookmarked for future use.
His JD's bookmarks are kind of he was showing me tonight. They're insane.
We have a little fun on there.
All right, it's time to get out of here.
Yep.
Hey, that's
Wrong
the wrong
one.
sounder.
Nick,
Hey.
while we're getting out of here and Silva looks for the sounder, give us some prospects to watch for the Breakers tomorrow.
Oh my god.
Lopez. Who else?
I think Lopez is probably the guy. They've got some other interesting guys. They have some guys that were formerly prospects that are a little older now, like mid-20s, that I think could make a Jay Sean Tate type move back in the league. Lopez is the guy. He will be the topic of conversation on Thunder Twitter tomorrow night.
Nice. Hey, it doesn't really matter what sounder you play, JD. They ain't paying us anyways.
That's true.
Shout out YouTube.
YouTube jail.
YouTube jail.
BBL Drizzy about to be the intro to this podcast.
It could now.
Hey, October 26th. It's a Saturday. Hit up your friends, hit up your family, hit up the boys, bring your children. Come out to Prairie. Grab some tasty beers. Get some barbecue. I bet Nick's gonna eat those. Nick's gonna eat the brisket elote.
Hell yeah.
Hell
See?
yeah.
Told you. Come get some barbecue, get some beer, and watch some basketball. The 3 B's in life. might be 4 B's, but I'm not going to say what the last one is. We will see you guys maybe Thursday after the game. Somebody's podcast.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Potentially
And
tomorrow.
then we're back on Sunday as well. Join us Sunday 9 p.m. If you haven't already, sub to the YouTube page. The numbers look good, but they won't pay us. Sub to the YouTube page. Come hang out with us live. We love it. And go drink some Prairie beers. We'll talk to you guys soon. Until then, and as always, AJ Mitchell forever and Thunder up.